In the Minnesota State Senate,
Good afternoon.
Happy New Year.
Tim Walsh shakes hands with a man in a wheelchair who returns to the audience.
Welcome to the Minnesota Council on Disabilities Annual Legislative Forum. It's great to see everybody here. We're lucky today that we're also web streaming this event live, so there are many people sitting at their desk or at home listening and watching, as well as we have several centers for independent living hosting live stream as well. And there may be a few even on the telephone, so we want to welcome all of those that are participating in that way. The Council on Disability was created back in 1973, and we exist really as an advisory state agency to the governor, to the state legislatures, to the state agencies, and the public regarding disability issues. My name is Joan Wilshire, and I'm the Executive Director of the Council on Disability. With us here today, we have a brand new council chair as of 6 months ago, appointed by the governor, Nancy Fitzsimmons. I think we'll have folks stand or raise their hand. Yep. And we also have with us, well, Ted Stamps and Marshall, so we'll just say a shout out to Ted Stamp. Dee Martineau, she's in the room here. Nikki Villavicencio, let's see, Christy Claudio, and let's see, I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. And I said Dee Martineau, so I think we've got everybody who's in the room for council members, but Myrna Peterson, exactly, came all the way from up north. So thanks so much for the council members for attending here today. So without any further ado, I think we're going to move right forward into the event, and I'm going to introduce our Vice Chair of the Council, Lauren Thompson.
Yeah, my name is Lauren Thompson, and I'm Vice Chair, as Joan said, and I have been honored to work with the community to help improve the personal care system, advocating for more funding, benefits, and training for workers that we know will lead to better care for clients. I know, and we know, our lives depend on it. I look forward to all of us coming together this session as we pursue greater accessibility, transportation, and improved care. Because when we can all live and work and be active, it doesn't just benefit us, it benefits all of Minnesota. So as we move forward, I'd like to welcome the governor and lieutenant governor and thank them for their ongoing support.
The applauding audience faces a panel of speakers seated at a long curved table.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here. We were having a conversation, just a brief conversation with Joan, and I understand this is the first time that a governor and lieutenant governor have come to this, and I want to just say to you that it will not be the last time, and we are absolutely grateful for your leadership and the opportunity to be here with you. The Minnesota Council on Disability is an incredible partner in the work that we do to make sure that every Minnesotan is treated with dignity and with respect for their abilities. We share your vision to create a barrier-free Minnesota where every person with a disability can have access to the full aspects of life, and we have a responsibility to make sure that that happens. You know, this is not just a single issue topic or a checklist item that can be siloed off from every other conversation. So, you know, I'm sure you've heard us all talk about One Minnesota, and that's truly what that means, so that we know that every state agency, every legislator, the governor, lieutenant governor, that we all have a responsibility to work together across agencies, across sectors to ensure that the disability community is seen, heard, and valued. And we take that seriously. I also just wanted to give a shout out to SEIU Healthcare, who is in this space right now. And Lauren, yeah, you can cheer for that. I heard some cheering. Yep. And also just wanted to say a big thank you to Lauren Thompson for your leadership. The conversation that we were able to have with PCAs and with their clients just a few months ago was one of the most important conversations and experiences that we've had so far within our young administration. The governor and I were able to walk a day with personal care attendants and their clients, and it was important for us to see directly the impact that PCAs have on the ability for folks to be able to live their full lives, and that work should be valued. So I wanted to just say specifically thank you to Ms. Clara, who is not here, but I know I asked her to adopt me because she's wonderful, and for her son, Saran, who allowed us to spend some time with them. It was a powerful and moving experience, and absolutely impacted us, and will impact the way that we continue to do our work in our administration. So thank you. This is the lens that we need to look through as we talk about all issues, as I mentioned before. So transportation and housing, healthcare, jobs and employment, safe communities, so that all Minnesotans can enjoy everything that our great state has to offer. I look forward to continuing to work in partnership with the Minnesota Council on Disability and the disability community to move forward together so that we are co-creating solutions together. We know that the best ideas and solutions come from the communities who are most impacted by them. So us being here today is a really important step in that direction, and just are grateful for the work that you have done, but more importantly for the work that we will do together moving forward. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to my partner in justice and my favorite co-worker, Governor Tim Walz.
Well, thank you, Governor Flanagan, Lieutenant Governor Flanagan. I'm getting ahead of myself there. For the work that you do and the voice that you bring to the table every day. Joan, thank you. Nancy and the council, we're grateful. The hard work you do, the voice and the advocacy work. To the legislators who are here, I want to thank, we have a bipartisan group of legislators here, leaders in the Minnesota House and Minnesota Senate. It's great to see you here. We have county commissioners and others who are here. And then each and every one of you, thank you. Thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for continuing to hold Minnesotans to the highest standard, creating a barrier-free, inclusive life for every single one of our Minnesota neighbors, understanding that that means commitments of policy, it means commitment of resources, it means making sure that we don't view issues with the community being represented here as afterthoughts after we've already made decisions, or as Lieutenant Governor said, where somebody decides to do something either to or for the community rather than with our community to understand. So I am grateful for that. I too would like to echo the thoughts to Lauren for being part of and helping lead a powerful conversation, an opportunity for us to put both a personal lens on it with an understanding that one day does not tell the whole story, but there's an awful lot of Minnesotans that saw what we could do in one day and used the platform of this office to highlight what's out there. And so I'm going to give a special thank you. Jay, thank you, my friend, for opening up your home, opening up your life, showing me what a life of dignity can look like and what it means to have someone like Deb literally behind you, making the case every day and walking me through what it takes to do that. That was powerful. It was humbling, but it was also, I think, as you intended it to be, a very strong call to action that if we truly believe that the dignity of every individual and the work that PCAs do, then we certainly can't hide behind paying them less than they would make at Quick Trip or making sure that it's difficult to retain and keep people. And I think that message there to the legislators, to us, to our fellow Minnesotans, is PCAs provide critical services, it is cost effective, and it improves the quality of life. And that relationship between individuals and their care provider is foundational to the quality of their life. And I heard it time and time again, Lauren expressing it too. She's got too many hopes and dreams to not have those barriers brought down. She has too many things she wants to do to have us find easy ways out of this, and has too many dreams that it will be a loss to Minnesotans if we don't take advantage of what is being offered, what Lauren is giving back. So we look forward to working and partnering together. I appreciate, amongst all else, that the advocacy in every corner of the state from our community for inclusion is as strong as in any issue that we talk about because of the dignity of every single individual. And the camaraderie and the bipartisanship that is shown in the legislature around this issue is truly encouraging. So we're hopeful. We know that words without action don't cut it. Policies without the funding to make them work don't get us any better. And progress is going to be measured by the individuals impacted, not by how we view it. So I appreciate your work. We appreciate partnering together, and we look forward to making sure that, again, as the Lieutenant Governor said, this is one Minnesota, and it's the best place in the country for anybody to live. Thank you.
Joan Wilshire looks to Governor Walz.
Great. It's just a pleasure to have you here, and thanks for those great words. Great. Next up, I'm going to have Cody Olson, our Public Policy Director, come on up. Thank you again so much for attending.
Cody steps up and shakes hands with the departing governor and lieutenant governor. He takes a seat beside Joan.
Today and for being a part of our legislative forum. This is a very exciting time to bring different folks in our community together and bring allies and policymakers together to solve common problems and to better Minnesota. And so, like Joan stated, I have had the pleasure of working for the Minnesota Council on Disability as the public policy director in doing public policy work. And so we have been working together over the past year with different advocates, with different organizations, state agencies, allies, policymakers, with the governor's office to create a robust policy agenda that focuses on human rights. And that is the theme of our forum today. We have 3 sections. We have invited legislators from the different sections during the legislative forum. We're focusing on bonding issues. We're working on healthcare and human services, and we're also working on transportation issues. And this is we've created a policy agenda that reflects those different areas that we'll be talking about today. So rather than diving deep into them now, we are going to work on invite our legislators to come up very soon. And I'll just kind of give some highlights of some of the issues that we're working on. For example, in bonding, working on making state parks more accessible, making our capital more accessible, a couple different areas like that. And then in transportation, working on areas related to on-demand equitable transportation, working heavily on PCA transportation reform, increasing access to dental care services, all kinds of different things like that. So moving into the next section of our agenda, first I want to thank and welcome legislators who have agreed to be here today. I know a few would like to provide some welcoming comments before we move into the legislative panel. So I want to first invite Representative Constantine to come up and share some work that he's been working on.
Representative John Considine Jr. takes a seat at a desk facing the panel of speakers. Leaning in, he adjusts the microphone.
We cannot allow the Minnesota legislature to continue to balance the budget on the backs of the disability community.
Behind him, a woman signs.
That has happened for the last 20 years. We are in a crisis. We cannot find people to be caregivers anymore because, as the governor mentioned, they can make more money in fast food and Quick Trip. I have a bill that will mandate that all caregivers have a minimum wage of $15 per hour. This is not a partisan issue. There is culpability on both sides for how we have kept these people in servitude. This bill is One Minnesota. It is moral, it is humanist, it's pro-life, it's pro-family. It deals with what we need to do first off, and that is to pay the caregivers. Recently, I was emailed by a young woman. She's 17 years old, and she's in a nursing home because she can't find caregivers to take care of her. She has MS. She gets to make 2 decisions a week about what her meals are going to be. That should be an embarrassment for the entire state. I am asking everybody here, everybody that's listening, to contact Senator Gazulka, Speaker Hortman, Senator Abler, Representative Liebling, and let them know that you think the caregivers deserve a raise to $15 an hour. That's the only way we're going to get this done. You need to do it loud, you need to do it often, and you need to be persistent. It is way past time to get this done. My one regret right now is that Representative Loeffler, who passed away, would not be here to see it. She has been an advocate for these people for the entire time she was in the legislature and was a superstar. Thank you.
Thank you.
He makes his way off screen.
Thank you very much for your comments. So with that, we would like to begin the legislative, the session, the portion of our panel. So I would like to invite our invited representatives and senators to come up and join us on this table to talk about bonding and transportation and health and human services. So if the legislators would please join us.
A group of legislators joins the panel.
So joining us today, we have a wonderful group who have agreed to join us today. They're all from the 3 areas that we've been talking about, from left to right. I'll let you all introduce yourselves, if you will, starting on my left.
This is the Senate. You have to switch the button, right?
Yes, so make sure you flip your mic on.
Representative Steve Elkins from Bloomington's District 49B. The district also includes portions of Edina, Eden Prairie, and Minnetonka.
My name is John Hoffman. I represent Senate District 36, which is Champlin, Coon Rapids, and Brooklyn Park. And if you go any farther north, you're going to be in that little town of Anoka. So don't go quite far that north, but it's good to be here.
Thank you, everyone. Senator John Osinski, District 24, which is Faribault, Otana, Waseca. I represent the Minnesota Academies in Faribault as well. I am on bonding and transportation, and thank you again for having me.
I'm Representative Raymond Dean. I represent District 59B, which is most of downtown Minneapolis, the southern part of North Minneapolis, and all that area in between.
Representative Elise Mann from Burnsville and Lakeville.
Representative Sandy Lehman. I represent a big portion of Itasca County and a portion of Cass County. The hometown area is the Grand Rapids area, about 3.5 miles straight north of here, if you're familiar with that area. Glad to be here.
Okay.
So actually, just to, we'd like to also welcome the legislators who are in the audience as well. So if you're a legislator, would you please stand so that we can thank you for being here. So I see, thank you very much.
Well, let's jump right in, and the first topic is bonding. Bonding. I think we always want to start off with the question is, why is bonding important? Why should we care about bonding? Who wants to start?
Raymond Dean.
I'm happy to start. Bonding's important because Minnesota has many, many assets. Some of them are state-owned, some of them are local-owned. And it's incredibly important that, one, we maintain those facilities so they work well. And some of these facilities are actually fairly old, so they need some updating. And one of the things that I think is critical is, relative to updating to ADA standards to make sure that these buildings are accessible to all those people in the state of Minnesota. So it can be somewhat a controversial issue here at the Capitol. So it's one of those areas that I think creates a great opportunity for us to work bipartisanly to do what's most important for the people of Minnesota.
He moves his microphone back. Representative Sandy Lehman.
And I think I'm the second representative up here that's not part of the bond or the Capital Investment Committee. And we take capital investment pretty seriously. It's one of the few times that we all get on a bus and actually travel all over the state of Minnesota. And this was my first year in the Capital Investment Committee, and boy, was that worth it. It was grueling. I mean, we put in 13 and a half, 14-hour days. But and 17 of those days traveling all four corners of the state and the metro area. And it's a bipartisan group. So you've got DFLers, you've got Republicans, you've got bipartisan staff, you get to know each other, and you get to see what we own out there, what we own as a state, what we own as local governments. We get to know communities. And as Representative Dean just mentioned, kind of the overriding, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but kind of the overriding theme in this day and age, you should be happy to know, is improving buildings for disability access. I mean, that's one of the first words out of everyone's mouth is we are not ADA compliant, or this part of our building is not ADA compliant, and we need to make it so. So that's a common theme, and that's why we're here today to talk to you.
Great. One of the things that we find when we've been working on our issues for Parks for All, it's all about bathrooms and parking. It seems like the two don't always go hand in hand in many of the state parks and other areas. What do you see down the road that we're going to be able to do to try to fix those so that everyone can truly enjoy and participate in our beautiful state parks?
Senator John Jasinski.
Thank you again. As a member as well as the bonding committee, as Representative Lehman mentioned, we cross the entire state. We spend 17 to 18 days away from our homes, traveling the state and seeing what is out there for projects. And we have a lot of projects, a lot of infrastructure projects that will definitely benefit Minnesota, from wastewater treatment plants to roads to bridges to facilities to HEAPR money to colleges to parks and everything in between. Again, it's a lot of things you learn across the state, what projects we need and what we have to maintain. The HEAPR funds alone for our colleges and universities to maintain these facilities in a condition that doesn't cost us a lot of money down the road is very important to keep investing in that. We have wastewater treatment plants that are probably built in the early 50s, late 50s now, that are all approaching their end of their economic life or major renovation requests. So we look at it very seriously. We've toured all four corners with the exception of the Metro, which we'll be doing here at the end of the month in January, to tour that. And we always want to keep an eye to see out there what we can do to improve the accessibility for everyone across the state that will benefit all Minnesotans. So we take it very seriously and we'll continue to do that. Thank you.
That's a great question, John Hoffman. And it just boggles my mind sometimes. Back in 1999, when the Olmstead decision was made by the Supreme Court saying that people with disabilities have a right to live in the community and they have a right to work in the community, right? It's a constitutional right, don't we agree? And so when you think about that, yeah, you can clap for that. Let's go. It's not just about, and I'm so glad the governor said, it's not about after the fact, but rather we need to be proactive and really bringing sure that we're talking about disability when it comes to planning. Why is it that we always segregate the disability conversation from the rest of the conversation? When we know 26% of the United States, somebody lives with a disability, right? 1 in 5 people live with a disability in the United States. So if we're not having a forefront discussion about that, i.e., is this a barrier-free or is this an accessible entrance, or where is the parking, or why did we put the barrier-free accessible parking across the street from the Capitol when we should have put it over by the Capitol? And that's the conversation that needs to be having at the forefront. And I'm so glad that the governor made that a promise when he was here this morning. So we just have to remember, including people with disabilities in everyday activities, is encouraging the roles similar to the roles that everybody else has. And so I'm glad to see your public policy agenda on Parks for All. I think the Capitol Complex tunnel system, you should ask for more money and really make it barrier-free. It shouldn't have taken Kim Petman to walk around this building to realize that it's not just mobility by a wheelchair, but rather there are some walking limitations that we need to take into consideration. And absolutely, taking down physical barriers are such an important piece, and you all have a right to do that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Steve Elkins here. So I think another thing that we need to be vigilant about in the bonding area is just making sure that as the state develops state trails in particular that are defined in state law, that as those trails are built out, that we have facilities that are accessible to people in wheelchairs as well, which we're not always doing a good job of.
And it looks like we've got someone new on at the table here, Senator Hayden. Welcome.
What's your name? If I should turn this on. My name is Jeff Hayden. I represent Senate District 62 in South Minneapolis, and I'm very happy to be here. I sit on both of the Health and Human Service committees, and I am the ranking member on the Human Service, our Health Human Service Reform Committee. I'm going into my 12th session in the legislature. I spent 3 of those in the House and now going to my 9th year in the Senate, and I have always served on the Health and Human Service Committee, so there's plenty of friendly faces that I'm looking at today, and I am ecstatic that you're here today. I'm here to listen and learn. I have a very esteemed group of panelists that are here today, and I want to continue to advocate, push, fight for, use whatever influence I have to ensure that we are thinking about everybody in this society, and that we, Senator Hoffman eloquently said, that we're not segregating or we're not looking at people with disabilities differently than we look at the rest of Minnesotans. It's the work that I've been doing passionately, not only for the communities that you represent, but we often represent multiple kind of communities that have barriers in front of them. The POCI communities, like I said, people with disabilities, and then just in general, really making sure that we have fair and equitable treatment of all Minnesotans. So once again, I'm ecstatic to be here, and really want to listen intently on what are the things that we need to focus on next session and beyond. And I will say this, not to make this political, because this is a bipartisan or nonpartisan issue, but I always say this, that when we come to talk to you this summer, make sure that you're expressing to people what is the most important things for you, and then ensuring that they're going to support those issues moving forward. And then the last thing that I will say is look at their track record to see if they've supported it in the past.
Great. Let's move forward here and start talking about transportation. As we all know, in the disability community, transportation is what makes our world go round and around. And if we don't have it, it puts us to a sudden stop. So what are we going to do about ensuring that we have good access to transportation as we look into the legislative session coming up here. Go ahead, Representative Lehman.
Well, I'm not on the Transportation Committee, but I'm going to just say a couple things about transportation because I see it as one of the very key issues for people with disabilities that are homebound. And I'm here actually today because we have an advocate in our community who's outstanding. Her name is Myrna K. Peterson. She's in the audience, and she's on the council, appointee from the governor. And one of the reasons that transportation is such an issue is because people with disabilities that are homebound are invisible, right? If you don't see them, you don't think about their needs. And what Myrna has done in our community is made herself visible in a very positive way. I mean, the woman has a smile on her face, and she's been through a lot. She was in a horrible car accident in the mid-1990s that left her wheelchair bound. And she decided to do something about it. In 2015, she and a friend who had been in a similar accident got together and said, we're going to break the Guinness World Record. We're going to draw attention to how many people there really are in this community who are disabled. And they got the word out. 351 people in wheelchairs showed up. 351 people in a community of Grand Rapids, about population about 10,000. And they tried to break the Guinness World Record for being in motion at the same time for the longest, most wheelchairs for the longest time. Well, out of that spun something called Myrna Lee Mania. And they have been on the ground, very visible in our community. And I would just encourage all of you to use this as a model. Because what happens then is when your city council is building that new building or building that new park, you're invited to the table. And that's what's happening in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, Itasca County, is Myrna and her fans are invited to the table, so that building is built with handicap accessible features. And right now, I know we're talking with Myrna about transportation issues. They have developed a kind of a pilot using grant money in the community for vouchers, just so people can get out and take a part in community events in the evening. Right now, we have something called Arrowhead Transit, a bus that will take people during, a short period of time during the day. But if you're in a wheelchair and you want to see a play at night or go to the theater, what are your options? They're pretty expensive if you don't have a friend with a wheelchair accessible vehicle. So we're trying to correct that. And I think when we have transportation discussions, if we can remember that not everybody can jump into a car and get behind the wheel, that we have to make the community and make the features in the community accessible to all. And I would just advocate for doing that at the ground level, starting in your communities and gaining our attention here at the state level at the same time.
Thanks for those great words. We love Myrna. She's in the back there, and a new council member, and she's a great advocate for the issue of transportation. Representative Elkin.
Thank you, Joan. This year, we should point out that we made one significant accomplishment in transportation, which was to break out the budget for metro mobility out of the Metropolitan Council's budget as a separate line item, which improves its visibility and should, in the future, help ensure that the funding is adequate and isn't competing for general transit purposes. This year, we're going to have a bill, which, Cody has drafted. I'm going to be carrying it in the House that would be particularly aimed at wheelchair-bound folks using shared mobility services. So the advent of shared mobility and the future availability of self-driving shared mobility are going to be a real boon, I think, to members of the disability community who are not wheelchair-bound. But the wheelchair-bound segment of the population is in serious danger of being left out if there aren't also vehicles that are capable of accommodating wheelchairs. So this bill that we'll be introducing shortly will create a fund funded by a surcharge on shared mobility and taxi fares to help subsidize the availability of taxis and other shared mobility vehicles that are accessible to people with wheelchairs, and that's going to make a huge difference. So the one thing that I think we're in danger of losing sight of is, with all of these new shared mobility options is that if there's no thought put forward to what kind of vehicles are going to be needed by the wheelchair-bound community, that whole population is in danger of being left out.
We can't wait for that transportation network companies to be able to come in here, but they need to be accessible. And so that's going to be a vital bill, absolutely. Senator Jasinski, and then I'll go to Representative Dean.
Thank you, Joan. Just following up on Representative Elkins, we worked on that bill, and I actually did that bill 2 years ago. We made some progress and brought a lot of issues and had learned a lot of good things. We didn't get it to the finish line, but I think this year we'll continue on with that, and hopefully that will come. You know, the market rate of those companies to help set up taxi cab business or other businesses that have been impacted by those changing technologies will help allow for new vehicles that have more accessibility, and we can do that. So especially in the smaller rural communities, it's just as much an issue as is in the metro. I know it's a big thing here, but some of our smaller towns, the towns that I represent, Faribault, Otana, Waseca, are much smaller, and those small towns need it just as much as the metro area. And if we can do something and look at a fund to work to get some money into either making people more, I guess the best word is to motivate people to invest in those private businesses to get vehicles available to provide handicap accessible people around the community. So we'll continue to work on it this year. We want to work with the TNCs to make sure that we have a bill that both agree with that, so we can get that through. And then the larger cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul and Rochester and Duluth are some of the bigger issues we dealt with last time. So if we can get together, we had some great work sessions last year in the last session, and I think we'll continue to improve on that and get something that will really benefit everyone across not only the metro area but the rural Minnesota as much as everyone. So again, thank you for you guys' work on that.
Representative Dean.
Thank you, Joan. So when we talk about transportation, we're really talking about two different things. One is transportation related to roads and highways and all those other types of things, and then we're talking about transit. And as the senator just mentioned, when we talk about transit, we need to talk beyond the metro area relative to accessibility for individuals to use some form of either private or public transit. In the end, though, the past several years, we've done nothing relative to issues around transit. And I think it's time that we really start stepping up and saying that we need to do more to make sure that people have access to transit. You're correct in that we broke out Metro Mobility from the Metropolitan Council, which I think will have some impacts. But at the same time, we need to make sure that our transit systems are keeping up with the cost of living, the cost of inflation, and the cost of everything else, and we haven't been doing that. Now, relative to transportation, there are some critical projects that we need to consider the ability for individuals to cross. How broad is that area to cross, and are they crossing at grade, or are they able to cross in an elevated way so they're able to get from one side of the highway or the road to the other side of the road? And I know that we do have some projects that are in the bonding bill that will take that into consideration. So as we continue to move forward, remember there are a couple different ways we have to think about the issues relative to transportation. And I hope that you all can be very, very strong advocates for transit because we're going to need to fund that in a way in which we're actually catching up for a few years where we didn't increase the funding.
Thank you. And just a little added note, the council, we are also working with MnDOT on the autonomous vehicle, self-driving car issue. And so just put a little tickler in there to let you know that we'll be letting you all know as things move forward on that particular issue. I think we should jump right into Health and Human Services. That's a big issue. Who wants to jump in here? Representative Mann.
Thanks. Healthcare is clearly a big issue for every single person in the state. It seems like access to affordable quality care is dwindling and seems to be a thing of the past almost. And so, like Senator Hoffman mentioned, why do we segregate this conversation, right? In this particular instance, I think we can start broadly by saying we need to work on access for every single person in this state. And that's been one of my goals here at the legislature. However, people with disabilities certainly face extra hurdles. The cost of equipment, medication, specialized care alone will put families into poverty if they are not properly taken care of. And so what we have been able to do so far is we were able to reduce the TEFRA fees for families with children with disabilities by 15% last year, which was a really great win, I think. We also implemented the competitive workforce factor. And right now, you know, we've talked about it just recently, that there is a huge shortage of direct care workers. And by implementing the competitive workforce factor, we were able to address some of this shortage and its funding inequities. And we added $34 million to funding direct care workers in the upcoming biennium, which was also a great step in the right direction. We were also able to change how the wages are calculated by using more accurate and current wage statistics. And lastly, we got rid of some of the spend down for MA recipients, which again, in and of itself was putting people into poverty on purpose, or worsening poverty on purpose. So that was great. And lastly, we do have what we started off with House File 2436 last year to increase the activities that would be reimbursed for PCAs, which would include driving. And we got started a little bit late last year, so it didn't get as far as we wanted it to, but that is something that we will continue to push forward. But again, I think that the base of this is we need to get health care to everyone, and we're going to work hard on that next year to get it done.
Great. Senator Hoffman,
How much time do I have? You know, I'm glad you guys are laughing. Don't start playing the music, Senator Jasinski, because if it runs out of that. My wife told me I wasn't funny, so I'm not supposed to try to be funny. And you know what? Thank you. Commissioner Opat from Hennepin County, Mike Opat is here, ladies and gentlemen. I think there's a guy who understands disability. He has been in the trenches. We have some people in common we know that we've met on many occasions. I'm glad you're here. And Kurt Rutson, welcome back to Minnesota. I'm glad you came here to tour this. And Matt Langland, I see my old intern is here. It's blows me away. And Dr. Mann, thank you so much for saying healthcare access is dwindling. Back in 2001 to 2004, when we looked at medical home and we brought it to the state of Minnesota, there was this little-known state representative named Jim Abler, who's now a senator, who actually brought that medical home concept to Minnesota. And Dr. Jeff Schiff, who was at the Department of Human Services at the time, actually two things came out of that. Number one, there was a decrease in the use of the emergency rooms as primary care. And number two, he saved $1 billion in Medicaid reimbursement just because we were able to do a comprehensive, coordinated, and collaborative primary care look at how folks with disabilities are served. I even had one family say to me from Benton County, that she wished her IEP team would be as collaborative as her medical home team. So that says a lot when you have that. So thank you for bringing that up. That still is a problem in Minnesota, and I wish there's a way to fix it. We can fix that. There should be a look at flexibility in waivers. There's such a draconian approach to how we deal with waivers in Minnesota, and I'm glad the Department of Human Services is starting to look at a different method of looking at how waivers are going to be done. But I want us to take a a step back and really say to ourselves, is this truly a consumer-directed care option? Is this really? That's, I think, the benefit of being an advocate, is that if you truly want consumer-directed care, then let's put those waivers in the hands of the individuals that are receiving services and allow them the flexibility within that waiver structure, which you can, right? There's Alan Bergman's probably one of the smartest people I know. Well, I said one time he was the smartest person I know in Medicaid, and he corrected me in front of 300 people. He said, no, I'm in the top 5. But he would say, when you truly look at the flexibility and waivers, you see one state Medicaid plan, you've seen one state Medicaid plan. Every state decides how their Medicaid plan is going to work. And I think we need to have the courage to be able to start saying, look, CMS, we're going to do it different in Minnesota. Even Wisconsin, in the state that dropped $500 million in Medicaid reimbursement, they actually initiated a consumer-directed care program, which absolutely is working. Chris Sears wrote about it a little bit on Sunday's piece. Am I doing okay on time? So the thing I think we need to look at this session is there's some legislative priorities. Senator Abler's office and my office have been working on looking at how the state hires and maintains employees with disabilities. And there's been articles regarding that. The St. Paul Pioneer Press, the Star Tribune had done one. But we've found that different agencies, supervisors, and administration affect how an employee with a disability is treated. This determines whether they truly have the opportunity to succeed. And what we want to do is take what we've learned and give employees the greatest chance of success and spread it across all agencies. Yes, even though it's a Health and Human Services beginning, all agencies are a part of it, because what did Olmstead decision in 1999 tell us? It's not an isolated impact. It's got to be separated, and it's actually got to be conglomerated. What's the word I'm looking for? Conjugated, whatever the word. It's collaborated together, and not just one agency has it, but we all have an obligation to make sure that that's there. So what we want to see is we need to incorporate training on how to work with people with disabilities, and that is specifically looking at our Connect 700 program in the state of Minnesota. It makes no sense for it to be under established MMB. It should be under the Department of Human Rights, because there is no coordination, or there's no consistency on how is it applied. You have one agency who is finding 599 reasonable accommodation requests. They found 598 reasonable accommodations. They're getting it right because they give the individual the ability to do his job in this point. Where another agency, not only do they not give reasonable accommodations, but they've been sued on multiple occasions, and guess what? They were found in violation of that person's civil rights. So those are the kinds of non-consistencies that we have. So let's listen to what the governor said. Let's make this a consistent approach on that. So if we as a state want to commit to these values, then we truly need to start within our own agencies and keep going on what Governor Dayton started and what now Governor Walz is saying to do. So we're ready to go. And it is not a partisan look. I'm telling you, this is a bipartisan effort, because disability and health and human services leave the ego outside the hallway, and this should be a discussion that has nothing to do with politics.
Thanks for those great words. I think Senator Hayden is going to get the last of the words here.
So I appreciate everything that Senator Hoffman and my other esteemed colleagues have said. However, I just bring a little bit of reality to the conversation. It is political. And every one of you that are here know that it becomes political, and that these issues often come down to the values that you have and the budgets that you put together. How much money are we going to spend in this particular community? The decisions that have been made about who gets paid what, and how much care do you need. Last year we had some provisions that said if you needed 12 hours of care, you got a certain amount. If you needed more than that, you got more. We zeroed out and lowered one and upped the others. That's a political decision. That was a political decision made by the majority culture here. So I want us to make sure that when we leave here, that we know that those decisions that are often made by the folks that are in charge, and how much and how they value the care that is given to you, how they value the resources that are given to you, and that it's often who is in charge who gets to make those decisions and who puts those budgets together. I can appreciate Senator Hoffman and Senator Abler's work together. I think it's valuable, and I think it's a model that often we are on some levels. But there's also other times that those things aren't collaborative and bipartisan, and that they're often based on what one particular chair or not decides what they're going to value and how much money they're going to spend. We had provisions last year, speaking of Dr. Mann's talking about TEFRA, where we had political games being played with TEFRA families. I had the bill. There were things that said, well, if you support this, I'll give you more, and if you don't, I'll give you less. Right? There's many advocates in here who know that that works because they came to my office to tell me. So I'm not going to pander to you. You're sophisticated, smart, and often understand these issues. So yes, if the world was just and fair, then the great things that Senator Hoffman said would work, and we wouldn't be having these problems. But it's not that way. It becomes a political issue, and so we need for you to continue to press and push us, right, and not take a back seat to these issues and demand that your legislators fight for the work that you need to have done. You will hear after each and every, especially each and every budget session, and you might hear it this year, the supplemental budget, depending upon what the February forecast says that they can't afford it. We can afford it. We can do it. We spend a ton of money. Spend $48 billion a biennium. You add in the federal money, we're close to $70 billion. We can afford it. We don't have to give those big old tax cuts to corporations, right? We don't have to do those kind of things. Minnesota's better than that. We can afford to give you the care we want. They don't have to be these so-called Sophie's choices. We can actually make that. I'm not talking about the policy Senator Hoffman says. Of course we need to figure out reasonable accommodations. And of course we need to coordinate that issue. And we need to make sure that reasonable accommodations are being given to those that ask for it. Of course we need to go to, and we're working awfully hard, and I know a bunch of us are, working with the Department of Human Service and other departments to make sure that the services are being delivered appropriately, that they're being delivered efficiently, and they're given the right level of care. But we also can't demonize every single person that works there if we don't like them. And those things happen this year. So I look forward to working with my colleagues. I look forward to looking back on this tape to make sure that the things that were being said in this room are getting done when we come back to this hearing room in about a month. But be that as it may, often these things are very, very political, and you guys have to watch for that, and you guys have to demand that it's not.
Leaning back, Senator Hayden gives a thumbs up.
Those are some great words. Thanks, Senator Hayden. It's our time now. We want to invite those in the audience to come up and make comment if you know of some legislation that you want to talk about as well. But now's your time. Come on up. We've got a microphone down at that end. And so we're looking at, though, around 2 to 3 minutes, if you can leave it at that amount, since we still got another hour or so to talk with other folks and so forth. So come on up and just state who you are, your name, if you're representing a group, and what the issue is. Looks like Noah's coming on up, so. Come on up.
You can sit at the table.
Yep, sit at the table and talk into the microphone. I know I've been bad. I can move away from it. So, nope, that's great. Come on up.
Do I have to turn this on?
Welcome.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I was disallowed from bringing my emotional support pet today, and the reason why is because I guess it's the Capitol Security's policy to only permit qualified service animals into the facility. So then my question is that And then he also went on to say that emotional support pets don't have the same protections as a service animal under the ADA. I'm wondering why that is, since there's a connection, there's a mind-body-spirit connection. In fact, mind and body are inseparable. So I'm wondering why an emotional support pet wouldn't have the same status as an ADA, and what, if any, we could do about that.
I think I'm going to bring up staff person David Fenley to address this. He's been working on this issue quite frequently. David is our ADA director. Welcome, David.
So thank you, John. So it's a valid question, and by no means does the ADA want to lessen the support that emotional support animals do provide folks with disabilities. The main concern is for the rights of people who have service animals. They're animals which are predominantly dogs, are highly trained, sometimes to the tune of $75,000. And anytime there's an interaction with another animal, there's the potential that that animal's not doing its job for the person who requires that service animal. So we want to lessen that interaction. Also, emotional support animals are, your rights are afforded under the Fair Housing Act, not the ADA, and there's different definitions. I'm more than happy to talk with you offline if you want better explanation, but that's kind of the short answer to your question.
Great, thank you. Just one quick comment. Did you have one quick?
Yeah. I think I heard earlier about people being unable to leave their house for whatever reason. I can't remember. There are some people that are actually shut-ins that are either emotionally or mentally unwilling and are able to leave their place. And I feel that if they had an emotional support pet, that would enable them, encourage or enable them to leave the place, leave their house. The other thing is that emotional support pets could actually save somebody's life. I heard of an instance where some guy went to go commit suicide. He brought his dog, left his dog in the car. He heard his dog barking, and then he changed his mind and didn't commit suicide. In that sense, the dog actually saved his life. Whether or not the dog was unofficial emotional support pet, that's fine. That's besides the point. But I wanted to tell you guys the story.
Thanks so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Who's next? Welcome. State your name, and if you can keep it to 2 minutes would be great. Thanks.
Right. My name is Nicholas Spencer Volkmuth. I was part of the EI-DBI advisory group and told the story of what happened at a group home in the Cambridge North Branch area. Heck, I even have the article on me now. About how I know a resident of this group home who warned the staff, and the staff belittled with a warning by saying, "Do not worry about it," and then the fire breaks out. And it was said right in front of Senator Matthews. So anyways, that was really, really great, how we need to improve the quality of services provided. My idea is, one of them is that have the clients, and this is a military metaphor, have the clients fill in the enlisted and officer ranks, and the providers fill in the officer and general admiral ranks. You have clients who have field experience training in new staff, after, of course, the clients in question are trained in to train in new staff. And this type of hierarchy of command would smooth things out on understanding what it means to be one of us. Because I do not want lives endangered by society's real retards. If you understand the metaphor, the Judge Judy calling neurotypicals stupid idiots thing. So, quite the irony. The other thing that I would like to see is to change this one-lane, two-way road into a six-lane, one-way road. That you have the people who are very high functioning in the fast lane, and those who are, of course, lower functioning in the slow lane. But I've had clients who are so high functioning that they recognize that when staff are not around, they wouldn't engage in threatening behaviors, coaxing me to physically hit them because they just whisper to me, "Don't make me hurt you." The stress of that made me want to commit suicide. The only thing that cured that was a hug session at a strip club in Bach, Minnesota. Wasted money. I don't want to see this money wasted. We increase money, but at the same time, we are not really getting that quality now, are we? To help ensure that we get the quality, let's have some of these people who have been receiving these services provide these services. And so we will not have a single $100 bill, heck, even not a penny be thrown away, wasted. I want to see eat my bane for my buck and my pennies pinched. Okay? Any questions or anything else?
Does anybody here have questions? Okay, well, thanks for sharing.
Right, and I'm part of Minnesota's Independence Party.
Okay, great. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Jillian Nelson. I'm the policy advocate for the Autism Society of Minnesota. I am also an autistic adult here in Minnesota. I first of all want to thank you for your commitment to making Minnesota a more accessible place. But I also want to urge you to consider looking at the broad range of our disability community. Over and over, we talked about accessibility in terms of parking and wheelchair ramps and bathroom accessibility. There is a large portion of our disability community that requires accessibility needs that are not met through a ramp or a bathroom or parking. In Minnesota, 1 in 42 Minnesotans live with the autism disability diagnosis. We are not the only disability that requires accommodations and supports beyond a bathroom or a ramp, and it is becoming a national crisis in the matter of which the neurodiversity community is being left out of accessibility conversations when we're looking at the infrastructure for Minnesota. The Autism Society of Minnesota has been working towards passing legislation regarding things like law enforcement training for autism. And these are basic steps that this state can take towards making Minnesota accessible for all people. We talk about safety and things like handrails and bathrooms and ramps for individuals who have physical needs. But for many of us, it's things like sensory opportunities to have a safe sensory space within a public building, or to have our public officials such as law enforcement and teachers and DHS workers have an understanding of what neurodiversity means and the very unique needs to individuals such as those living with autism. So I really urge you as the lawmakers going into this session, when you talk about creating an accessible Minnesota, when you talk about one Minnesota, please do not leave behind those of us that are living in this state with an invisible disability, and we need more than a ramp to participate fully in our community.
Great. Thank you so much for those important words. Who's next? One of you. One of you. Jump in.
I was trying to be a nice guy, that's all.
Okay. Mark Hughes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Hi there. How are you? My name is Mark Hughes, and I anchor a little TV show called Disability Viewpoints. I'm a 12-year member of the Minnesota State Council on Disabilities, which is the longest by law you can serve. So Joan put up with me for about 12 years, and I thank her for that. January 4th, 2019, the computers went out, and so we're all stranded on Metro Mobility. There were no backups, no way to use the phone, this, that, and the other thing. And the story goes on now. I'll update you. On about December 13th, I was picked up from Golden's, a restaurant in Maplewood. And just to keep the record straight, I wasn't drinking, and I don't drink because I'm on night shift. And so my ride showed up at 10:30, which is an hour late. Then we went to the Minnesota Vikings stadium because they had an event. Then they put 2 wheelchairs behind me. I was supposed to be first dropped off. I couldn't get out. So we went. This point to my story is went to Minnesota Vikings Stadium to 1085 Montreal, which is the apartment building. And then the guy who was ambulatory sitting in the seat says, well, I live right next to this guy. So pretty soon I look around, we're on the east side of St. Paul. So I told the driver, I must be the last one off. Senior, so into this, the next guy was Coon Rapids. We rode to Coon Rapids. I got home at 10 to 2 in the morning for a 4-mile ride. The other thing is that yesterday I was down in our Egan office, and I had scheduled a 3:30 ride. They moved it to 4:15. Nobody contacted me. I said, you people can't do that. We got 4 businesses in town. Not my name isn't listed on them, but you can always get a hold of me. And so these are the games we're playing. My point is that it's nice to have the finance broke out so that Metro Mobility can continue. But it's the here and now. It's about management. It means that the management at First Transit, the management, the Met Council, Nick Thompson, Tim Ogren, they're the people that really got to be looked at. I've been down to the governor's office, talked to Sabachka. She wants to create an app for it. The app does me no good. It's the here and now, current, that has to change, has to adjust, and right now. The other PCA issue I'd like to mention is I've mentioned before that this should be on an educational, per education basis as you move up in the ranks of the PCA. Then you can increase your wage. And so the PCA issue is important. I know it is, and I care about each and every disability person in this room. That's why I try to work so hard at this, and I thank you for your time. Any questions? And I'm also looking for any of you senators that want to help me in any way. I'm looking for some help, because this is an issue that can't go on. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
Another important issue. Okay. Noah, are you coming up? That'd be great. And again, I've got to ask if you can keep it short so we can, there's a lot of folks that want to talk and we want to hear from everybody. It's important. So go for it, Noah.
Hi. So my name is Noah. I'm a disability advocate around the state, and I serve on a variety of state commissions, and I apologize if I'm a little less boisterous, but I have a cold and I have a migraine. So I want to thank Jillian Nelson for her comments on accessibility, because that basically completes about half of what I was going to say. The other piece that I really wanted to focus on is the intersectionality of race with disability. We've had a lot, I have had the opportunity to get to know a lot of folks in the East African Hmong communities, and I'm seeing the challenges that they are having in accessing services for their children with disabilities. And so as I look around the room, I just noticed that the disability community at large is very Caucasian, and I don't mean that to bother anybody, but we really need to get better at outreaching to communities of color so that they can have the same opportunities for equitable services as everybody else. The second point I wanted to make was in regards to some legislation that I'm working on with Representative Steve Elkins. We talk about accessibility in the fashion of accessible bathrooms, curb ramps, et cetera, and one of the things that I think is often overlooked and has also probably removed me from the League of Minnesota Cities Christmas card list is the issue of digital accessibility. And so I know it's something that's on the council's agenda, and I really want to encourage the council to also pay attention to making sure that public information is available to everybody. My third and final point is I have a bill I'm working on with Senator John Hoffman, and I have several of these types of bills that I'm working on with different legislators, and really taking an in-depth look at some of these state statutes where people with disabilities have been just completely left out of the equation. And one of those examples we've seen on the Governor's Council, I know there's been conversations with John and Dr. Wick, is in regards to health equity. We have had a lot of conversations with the Minnesota Department of Health and the Center for Health Equity, and how people with disabilities have largely been absent from every single study they've done for the past 20 years. And so we are coming back with a bill to just rewrite that entire statute and ensure that disability can really be a part of that conversation as well. And so just overall, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me. I'm sorry if anybody gets sick because of my presence. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Noah. Good points. Muzamil, another one of our council members.
Right.
Welcome, Muzi.
Thank you very much. My name is Muzamil Ibrahim, and I am a council member. And I would like to begin with some of the talk that was done earlier. Somebody was talking about that we people with disability are invisible. We're not visible. And therefore, when we are not visible, people don't think to do things about us or something that is related to people with disability. And I feel like we are visible, but I think we are forgotten, is how I do see that. Because I'm here, I'm visible in the community, but people are not remembering us. We are being forgotten, is how I would like to begin. And going to my point, and I have heard a lot of talk around accessibility. And when it comes to that accessibility, we mainly talk about park, physical accessibility, moving around. That is not the only thing that we people with disability have issues with. And me as a council member, I never heard talk around education. And education is being a big thing, huge thing that changes our status, but not being talked in accessing for people with disability. And I recently graduated from University of Minnesota, and I've been in the school for some years, and I have experienced so many things that were not, accessible for me and for many people who have the same disability as me or different disabilities. And many of them, as a result, stop before finishing colleges or universities. And I really hope that senators and Congress, men and women, give more attention to education and make it more accessible for people with disability, to make it easier for them, to make it better for them, so that they can graduate and then have status as anybody else. Another thing that I would like to add is that immigrants, and I am an immigrant, as you're seeing me from my accents or from my face, and so when I came to the United States, there's no any means for us to bond, to connect with my new community that I moved into, because there's no much services for people who are immigrants, who have disabilities. And I would also ask you, with respect, to pay more attention to us and also to work with us so that we can have choices to bond, to connect with our new community that we choose to live with. Thank you.
Thanks, Muzi. And you brought up some good points. Who's next? Welcome.
Thank you. This is on. Thank you. Shout out to everybody for being here. And I just wanted to bring forth some of the challenges that I think we do. I've met with many of you and we've talked, Senator Hoffman, Senator Hayden. We do need help. We need to be recognized. We are capable. We can work. We heard people talking about.
Can you speak into the microphone? That'd be great. Thanks.
I can't.
The man takes a seat at the table before a microphone.
Is that better?
Perfect.
Thank you for taking your time. As I've talked to many of you, we need help getting recognized. There's many of us in this room that are in this system that feel like commodities. We want to get back to work. We want to be active. We want to be here, but the barriers from the system are put in the way, so we need the support to remove those. And it's not all about dollars and cents. It's about giving us opportunities. It is about almost empathy, because we've talked many times and how it's getting hard to be, we're not feeling like we're listened to. And so we are bringing some things forward this year. I've had to create an opportunity for me to go back to work despite the system. And now we're going to come back and fight the system. Why can't we use caddy waiver funds for service animals to help us be more mobile, to give us some of that purpose? Why can't we use caddy waiver funds to get medical cannabis? Because I can sit at work all day on oxycodone, but I can't on medical cannabis, and we can't get that access. So I hope we get some support and listen to where some of the direction is coming from. Thank you.
Great, thanks for the comment. Who's next?
A white-haired man interprets as an individual signs.
Hello. Oh, she's going to come. Hello, my name is Sonny Waleski, and I'm from Faribault, and I'm a deaf individual here. And I have several things I'd like to talk about, but I'd like to see an interpreter license for sign language. Today, people who have businesses, there are people who have jobs and they need to have licenses, but interpreters don't. So I'm thinking, sometimes I have 8 or 10 or 11 interpreters for me, and they're not working. And so, like, if I have an important job, like an interview or something, I want somebody who's an interpreter, not a signer. Because, you know, I need a qualified interpreter in order to do that job interview. And so I would like to see, like for captioning on TV, it's very important. It's good for people who are children, they're learning language. It's good for people who are deaf. Instead of having to always ask for everything to be over and over and over again, it just consumes so much energy. So I'm just concerned if, like, an emergency were to come up and it would be on TV, like there's some bad weather that's coming in the area, that it would have captioning as just a default, that's just ready and on and working. There are people out there who are working with people who are deaf, who can sign, but some of their skills are not that great, really. It's not acceptable for interpreting. So we need to raise the bar so that people can understand the interpreters that they're using.
He grips the microphone as he watches for the rest of Sonny's comments.
And say that name again. I am on the advisory council for the early recognition and intervention. And in that committee, one thing that we found out that we need to do is we need language that spells out what the barriers are, and to realize that many children, many individual children, they do not have access to their own language. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And so they need advocacy there. And so thank you for your time, and I really appreciate you listening very much.
Thanks for your comment.
Thanks for
Daryl?
You're welcome.
I just want to make a quick housekeeping comment. We do have a second panel, so we appreciate everybody's enthusiasm, and we want to get as many people as possible. So we're going to go on for another 6 or 7 minutes and let some more people chat, and then we'll move on to the second panel. Thank you. So if you can keep your comments brief, thank you.
Yeah, my name is Daryl Paulson. In lieu of the fact that you have a second panel, I'm going to keep my comments very brief. The two things that I want to talk about and kind of impress upon you guys is, first of all, I want to thank the audience for being here. I want to thank the turnout that we got. And most of all, I want to thank the legislators for spending the actual time to listen and actually endure the hard conversations and the hard comments that some of us heard up here. And really, what I want to talk about is the opportunity that deals with changing the attitudinal barriers, or the attitudinal barriers that we face in society as we walk through our communities and we participate in daily lives. If I can change one attitude at the grocery store, or change a teller's attitude at the bank about how they perceive their interaction with me or my family, then I've done my job. So it's really not about putting dollars to problems and fixing those problems. It's about changing attitudinal barriers, or attitudes that we face on an everyday basis. And in order to do that, we do that 2 ways. We do that not only supporting individuals like we have through their caddy waivers or through their home care workers, right? But we do that by supporting the actual family unit. And we do that by supporting the whole family unit, the neighbors, their neighborhoods, their people at church, their taxi cab driver that picks them up, or the person that does their laundry. When we start supporting the whole team or the whole family unit, then we'll actually provide some real efforts and we'll actually see some real changes in the disability community. But we only can do that if we understand that supporting the family unit does take an investment. And it takes an investment that no other state has done in the country, okay? When I say that, I mean the fact that my partner and I, we just recently got married in Las Vegas over Christmas. We'll have that be another issue that we'll have to deal with Social Security about, especially if they see this tape. But the fact that we had to run to a state that only recognizes a marriage for 10 days unless you file it legally, the fact that we had to do that in order to have my daughter, who's 7 years old, understand the value of a family unit, it was absurd to me. It cost me a lot of money, but it was enjoyable. And the fact that when we start making investments in families, then you're gonna actually see every one of us that are sitting around collecting our Social Security check, you're gonna see us put some of that back into the community. So I urge you to work with me over the next year or so, because we do have a bill pending that we're trying to get in the governor's budget and the next budget, and I'll be looking at some of the legislators here at the table today to actively work with me to make sure that we put families first in Minnesota and not just individuals with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. And the last comment is going to be with Judy, and I want everyone to know, those that are in line, if you could stay afterwards and come up to Cody and I and let us know what your comments are. We'd like to be able to write those down, and because we want to make sure everyone is heard today. So even though we're running out of time to have you speak in the microphone, we want to hear what your issues are. So if you don't mind to be able to speak to us at the end, and we'd be glad to hear what your issues are then.
Well, I really am going to take 1 minute.
Yeah, go for it, Judy.
All right. My name is Judy Sanders. I'm here with Matt Langland with the National Federation of the Blind. We're very proud of the fact that it is because of organizations like ours that every one of us can vote privately and independently at the voting booth. We think that's important. We now want to carry that through so that we can do the same thing with absentee ballots through email. That's it.
Great. Now, looks like I think we can do the panel in 20 minutes. So we've got 10 minutes. So if you can come up and speak in a minute or two would be great, because these are all fantastic issues we need to hear about. Welcome.
Thank you. So my name is Melissa Winger, and I have a 24-year-old son with significant disabilities, both developmental and physical. And I've been a part of the Governor's Council for Developmental Disabilities. I've been involved in medical homes since it's originated, and emergency medicine and all sorts of things. And my problem is that this has been 24 years. I started advocating for him 24 years ago. I'm still advocating for him today for the same issues. So most recently, because of the lack of home care, we decided that Devin would go to a foster care, the corporate foster care group home, thinking they were much better than the institutional setting. However, in the course of 1 year being there, he has suffered 3 issues of abuse, and all within a 3-month time frame. The first one involved a broken foot that nobody has any idea how that happened. Second one is that 3 weeks later, the second one, he was forcefully drugged from his group home onto the bus by a staff member. This was witnessed by multiple people. 3 weeks later, I go to visit him. He is covered in bruises. All 3 were reported to the Adult Protection Services. All 3, I got a letter within 3 to 4 days, the exact same templated letter that says, thank you for your report, no further investigation needed. 3 in 3 months. Little caveat, they say, well, we're going to keep your case open in case something else comes up. We're going to look at the whole thing. Then they give you a series of, well, it goes to Hennepin County, well, it goes to adult protection here, nope, now it goes here, now it goes here. Called the police department, they said, yep, I got a full stack of them sitting right next to me. We can't do anything because no one prosecutes these. So I looked into it a little further and looked at, well, what does our state do? What is the punishment? We have wonderful care providers, but there's a few that are problems. What do we do? Well, it's not much. Our maximum sentence, if you abuse someone with a disability, a vulnerable adult, 1 year, $3,000, that's max. You compare that to what the state of Minnesota does for an abused animal. An abused animal is 4 years, $10,000. That shows us how much we are protecting our citizens. They're our citizens. This is not us, them. This is all of us. And unfortunately, 24 years later, I'm still here. And he doesn't deserve that. Thank you.
Thanks for your 24 years. Thank you. Go ahead, come on up.
My name is Barbara. I'm 28 years old, and I have developmental delays, and I suffer with PTSD. I was verbally, emotionally, and mentally abused in a group home in 2010, right after graduating high school, when I moved into a group home. I was retaliated when I was hungry, where staff would not, would sleep in, where I was hungry, where I had to call my mom. It was about 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, and I was badly burned by going to a beach when I do not swim in little oceans or beaches, because I do not like fish, where I was badly sunburned when the staff wanted to just suntan, and many more problems where I was put behind, where ever since I moved out of the group home, 6 months after moving into one, I've never been the same. I suffer with PTSD. I call places to advocate for my behalf and others like me, and I don't feel heard. I don't deserve to live like this. I just want housing to be fair, and how can housing be fair when my mom and I don't live on much? When I live in apartments, my sensory is really bad to noise and other things. I just want to be heard, and part of me never came back home after moving out of the group home. Part of me died inside, and to this day, I still hurt bad. There's no justice for someone like me. We're told things where there's gonna be help, but where's the help for someone like me? And having better housing. Each and every day, I must go through this pain where feels like very little hope, where I just pray to go home to my real home with my Father in heaven, Jesus, because of the pain I have endured. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We've got time for two more individuals.
A man interprets as a woman signs.
Hello, my name is Jackie Cashley, and I'm at the Minnesota Citizens. I'm at the Minnesota Citizens Minnesota Association of Deaf Citizens. And I am the president. And I'm here because I have concerns related to the chemical dependency program over there at Fairview. They've decided to close that program for the deaf and hard of hearing and blind patients. And they're not going to be providing services after February of 2020. This is a big concern because we're fighting to try to keep that open for them to be able to continue to provide service. Also, we're having a rally on January 23rd at 7 o'clock in the morning at Riverfront Hotel, and January 28th at 7 p.m. at night, Jesus Lutheran Church. It's just not far from here. And the reasons why I wanted to share that with the legislators and senators here is we need to keep this program open for deaf and hard of hearing and deaf blind patients who need services, chemical dependency services. Without that program, we're going to be so stuck with our mental health issues that will pop up. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, who's next? Welcome.
Hi. Can you hear?
Yep, great.
Okay, my name is Mary Stearns. I live in Eagan, and you just heard from my daughter, Barbara. My concerns are with medical assistance and transportation, actually. In medical assistance, those with disabilities who are on UCare are provided no access coordination. And they want to save money by having case managers help these people that are on SNBC be able to get help navigating their medical care from their social workers or case managers. Well, in a lot of cases, and we have found this to be true, the case managers do not know how to access and do not even know it's their job to do this. When we were with Medica, you have an access coordinator who can help you navigate your medical assistance or, Medica programs if you need this. So I think that is a really important thing to go back to, is getting access coordination for all, not just for, Medica, and not have it for UCare members. Another thing that I have concern about is with MAEPD, and I am on MAEPD. I too have some disabilities. My question with this is in parent pay. I received some parent pay to help my daughter with her disabilities, with her dysfunctions that she has at home. And this program counts parent pay as part of your income. But there are a lot of MA programs out there, other programs that do not count parent pay. And I would like to see some fairness in that, and some, someone who can really take a look at that and see what can be done about this. Because I just don't agree that it should not count for some families and count for other families. And, they're just not equal across the board. The other thing I just wanted to mention is transportation. It's not a great system that we have right now. Metro mobility has been, for my daughter, and I know it's been this way for many others that I have known, it's really anxiety producing. These people want to be picked up on time, and you never have a set time that they're going to pick you up. And when you have someone who wants to leave at the time you're supposed to leave and, you know, is really, you know, they have to do it, it's really frustrating to them. Another thing they have let happen now is that people can use Uber or Lyft, I believe, as well. Well, we have found Uber to be, I'm concerned in the fact that there's been drivers who've been assaulting the passengers on there. I don't think in any way that I would let my daughter go alone on an Uber after hearing a lot of this. She's too vulnerable. Another thing with Uber drivers is that they are allowed to smoke in their cars. Both of us are highly allergic to smoke. I will, you know, I get, my stomach hurts from smoking when people are around. So I think if Minnesota can do something to, I don't know if we can do something in our legislature to say to those Uber drivers in Minnesota that we will not put up with smoking or smoke smells in their cars. It's a health issue. I don't think we should put up with that where people are working with PCAs either. And there are a lot of PCAs who do smoke and they want to take, they don't smoke in your home, but they want to take the client out and their car smells awful. And I mean, I can't imagine, my daughter will not even go out with a PCA who smokes. It's a healthcare field. Another thing that I was thinking about is if a waiver couldn't come up with a way to help fix a person's car so that the person can get around with their automobile. I have an older car. It's a 2003 Vibe. It needs some work. The air conditioning went out. And it needs a whole new air compressor, which is a lot of money. We don't have a lot of money. But in the summer, it becomes a crisis. It's a safety issue. I can run the car and have the windows down like we used to, you know, and before air conditioning, the 450 or whatever. And I cannot, you know, my daughter will be in the car, and if a bug flies in, she's like ready to jump out of the car in the middle of an intersection. Last year with one of her PCAs, she screamed and almost got into her PCA's lap when one flew into the car. That's dangerous. And these waivers, they will fix up houses if housing needs, you know, revamping or something for the disabled. But if you're in a situation where a vehicle is necessary, we don't have anything in waivers that can allow for a family that has low funding to be able to have a car repair. So those are my comments.
Thanks. They're all great comments.
Thank you.
Who's next? Come on up. Come on up. Yep.
At a microphone, a middle-aged man reads from a paper.
Welcome.
Welcome. Hi. My name is Steve. I work at MDI over in Minneapolis. Also, and also a volunteer for the Dodge Nature Center. And I do think Metro Mobility, which I am very thankful for the service. Like I said, it's a share, and it's a shared right of service, but it doesn't necessarily mean a shared ride is actually a good ride. There have been issues with it, and according to the right formula, I have a 99-minute maximum time to be on the bus when I go from home to work, which I do enjoy working. And there have been times when I'm late for work. I'm late for work. Twice in the last couple months, and I've also had some very, very long rides going home. Now, I'm able to work, and I enjoy working. I enjoy to work and to volunteer. Without this service, I would not be able to do so. But sorry. But no, with all this shared right service, you guys are talking about to expand the shared right service that are in the area and to all of the other all the other areas. It would be nice to have more and more options of people for people like me that can't work. I'm sorry. That can't drive. That would actually want to work and get to the store and get to a medical appointment and actually make it there on time rather than being told that they have multiple pickups like in very, very long distances away, which is which is frustrating to the people at the right Metro that ride at Metro Mobility, and I'm sure hoping that all the stuff will pass to where people who can't drive, who want to work, who want to volunteer, want to claim some sense of an independency can do so. So I thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, come on up.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Liz Hannon. I'm the parent of a 19-year-old with Down syndrome, and I have been all about advocating for his inclusion in the community his whole life. And in high school, he participated in everything. He's part of his whole community, but as soon as he graduated from high school, the only option in Minnesota really is a segregated program. And we lag behind other states with these programs in our surrounding states. Wisconsin and Iowa and most other states offer more opportunities that are integrated and inclusive for these young people to become included members of the community. They really need programs that are certified transition programs that are inclusive. And Minnesota provides grants for people to go to these programs, but we don't have the opportunities within the state, so I'm advocating for those grants to be able to be used out of state, but also moreover, I would like to keep him, and I know a lot of other families, I'd like to keep their students and their kids in the community rather than having to explore out of state as the only option for an inclusive post-secondary program.
Okay.
And I'm
welcome.
I don't know if this one's working. I'll use this one.
Hi, and I'm Jennifer Summerness, and I wear a number of hats. Hi, Senator. One of which is working statewide and nationally with schools to better include kids with disabilities in general education. And so I'm just here with Liz today to hear about the post-secondary options. We've been working with families, trying to get more of them across the state of Minnesota, and would love your support in that regard. A lot of the families that I've been working with for more than 25 years now, that their kids are now graduating, they're expecting to have the same opportunities that they've been afforded within the general ed populations of their schools. And I think that this is the next frontier for Minnesota as far as higher ed and opportunities for people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Hello, welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, Bob Wagner, licensed psychologist. Is it on?
Yep.
Pardon? Bob Wagner. I'm a licensed psychologist. I spent my whole life serving people with disabilities. Currently on the MNCCD board, as well as our policy committee. 3 quick comments. I'll be quick. First, I want to encourage people to use language matters. I want to encourage people to lose the term wheelchair bound. Replace it, uses a wheelchair, wheelchair mobile.
Thank you.
Second, when you speak about transportation, I want you to be cognizant of sidewalks. I described it to Rebecca Necker, my councilwoman. Imagine driving on the worst pothole-filled street. You're in a vehicle that has no suspension and solid core tires, and they never fix the street. Okay, that's the state of our sidewalks. And lastly, after listening the last hour, I'm sure many of you, like myself, your heart hurts a little bit, right? I'm reminded of a quote by Helen Keller. I'll probably butcher a little bit. Basically, she said, you know, the world is full of suffering, pain, and injustice. We must remember that the world is also full of facing pain and injustice, as well as overcoming injustice. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for everybody here who cares. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll go to this side again. Come on up. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Claudia Fugli, just making it short.
Yeah, get as close as you can to the mic would be great. Thanks.
Claudia Fugli. I'm just going to make it short, sweet, and simple. This is totally off the subject we're working on, but I'd like to see plans on accessible, affordable housing. It is so bad out there. People are having a hard time finding affordable, accessible housing that is somewhere that's close to everything. The other thing is election time. We need to make sure all the election areas are accessible and available for everybody, regardless of where they live. And again, like the gentleman just said, sidewalks and streets, nothing worse than flipping out of your wheelchair or tripping on a pothole when you can't see it. And so we need to make things safe for anybody and everybody, regardless of where they live and what their income is. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Cammie Laval, and I will try to make this really short. I am disabled and have been since 2016 due to a rare disease called complex regional pain syndrome, also known as reflex sympathetic dystrophy. It involves extreme intractable pain. And what we have found with DHS and the opioid work group is they have not included anybody with disabilities or the disabled community or the Minnesota Council on Disabilities. We would like to see somebody represent people with disabilities who have a medical necessity for these medications, not out of want or desire, but out of necessity. I would not be standing here today unless I responsibly took these medications. I'm a rare disease patient. There's a lot of people with disabilities who are being negatively impacted by this. So we would like to see our legislature, in addition to the council, get more involved with the DHS opioid work group, have a conversation, find out how we can help end some of the negative consequences and individuals like me being negatively impacted by this, because the only reason I'm able to stand here today is because of properly, responsibly using these medications, which I'm going to be force tapered from real soon. So we just ask for your help and all of our legislators' help, in addition to anyone else here who happens to be suffering due to forced tapering of medications. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead. Either side.
A pair of women steps up to a microphone.
Okay, which one of you? Both? Okay, good. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Hannah Fernie. Can you hear me? I'm deaf, blind, and I have POTS, which is an invisible illness. But I've been trying to get a waiver because I have some health issues, the psoriasis that you can see, and they keep on telling me I have to pay a spend down to get a caddy waiver or something. I don't have much income to begin with, so that would really impact me. So that needs to be fixed. And also, I have a support service provider. Maybe you would compare it to a PCA, but that's for deaf blind people. And I only get 20 hours a month. That's not enough time to do what we need to go do. Like, they help me with grocery shopping, going to the bank, different things. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Gina Schmidt-Deal. I have a seat on the board of the Down Syndrome Association of Minnesota, and I also am in Partners in Policymaking right now. And thank you. I just want to kind of echo what a lot of people have said here, and many people with different abilities really want meaningful employment. Not all people with disabilities just want to work at a restaurant and roll silverware. Meaningful employment means what they love doing and gives them purpose in this life, and also income. So not taking away services just because they would like to work and enjoy working. So figuring out somehow something that we can do to still be able to give them their services and their medical services, or medical MA, and then also being able to provide income for them.
Great. Thanks. Thank you. Okay, we made it through. Everyone, is your last chance. Anyone want to come up and speak? Now is your opportunity. Okay. Well, why don't we, I'm going to throw it over to Cody, because I think we'll move into the last panel. But definitely, I want to thank all the folks here from the legislature, Senate, and representatives for coming and sticking it out and listening to all the good comments. And so we hope to see some good legislation coming out of all these comments. Great. Thank you.
The legislators stand up from their seats.
So I think that since we are at the end of our time, I think what I want to do is recognize everybody who was invited to our panel. If everybody who was on our panel could stand and know that these people are resources for our community. I want to recognize Alicia Munson from the ARC Minnesota, Maureen Holden from the CCD, Molly Clark from the Brain Injury Alliance, Jeff Bangsberg from the PCA Reform Coalition, Zach Eichten in the back from the Brain Injury Alliance, and am I missing anybody else? Over there, Bill Amberg, I think, is that, yes. Oh, Jake, I'm sorry, from Maysville. So I want to thank everybody. This was a really incredible event, and we are so thankful that everybody had the opportunity to share their stories today with the Minnesota legislature. Do you want to provide some closing comments?
One of the things we're going to be doing is taking a look at all the comments, and we'll be also posting this on our website with the transcript and so forth. And we will be sending the key comments out to the legislators so they can hear and see from all of you. And so hopefully those legislators that missed this event can go review this online, but mainly we're going to send a written transcript to them so they can see and hear all these important issues, because many bills need to be written as a result of your comments. It's definitely needed. So thank you so much. And we look forward to working with you all in the future as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I talked to all the community panel members that we were going to let people do a lot of them have to.
Audience members begin to disperse and talk amongst themselves.